I've continued to point out that we got a double top on MicroStrategy. And again, MicroStrategy topped more than a year ago. It topped back in 2024. Formed this double top pattern, and it confirmed the double top pattern just over 2 weeks ago. It confirmed it, okay, by dropping below 231. When we got the lower high with MicroStrategy, Bitcoin topped and it diverged. Bitcoin moved to new high. MicroStrategy did not. It peaked on April. Bitcoin peaked on April 6th. So exactly what happened back over here in 2021 and early 2022 when we got confirmation of the double top pattern on MicroStrategy. Again, you had an Adam and Eve double top, the spike high, you got the peak, and then this rounding second top is exactly what we did over here. The spike high, and then the rounding second top, the Adam and Eve double top pattern. I talked about this over and over again. Post this chart on X again. People laughing and mocking, but yet we've confirmed a double top. Over here, after you confirm the double top, eventually you got to rebound back into the trading range. So you're probably going to see something like that happen once we get a bottom. But after the counter trend, again, the bottom fell out of MicroStrategy and out of Bitcoin. But this is a massive warning sign, and people ignore the warning signs. Bitcoin's going to new highs. Why did MicroStrategy form a double top and confirm it? Explain this to me. What it did at the last top. So again, we're just oblivious. They're in denial to what is going on. Please support the channel with the link directly below. That allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like the charts, you like the information, and you will, because my signals are correct. If you like that kind of cutting edge information, please follow the link below. Support the channel. I do ask you to do that rather than trying to sell you a bunch of stuff you don't need or send you to some exchange. They're going to go belly up or try to wipe you out, causing you to get over leveraged. Sending you to some site that wants to sell you something. Shady deal. So I just ask that you support the channel. If you could take a moment to follow the link below and support the channel, the link will take you to a secured site. Take a moment to do that. I would really appreciate it. Most YouTube channels, they get sponsors, sell you stuff. That's how the YouTube channels make their money. I choose not to do that. So I just ask that you, if you like my indicators, please consider supporting the channel today. Thank you for your consideration for that. MicroStrategy, since the top, has now dropped 69.5%. Okay, actually, it might be a little bit more. I don't think I got it quite right there. I think it's a little bit lower, right? Well, closer to 70%. Looks like a good drop. Now, again, MicroStrategy is ahead of Bitcoin. It'll get a bounce and then later drop more. Bitcoin will play catch up. Over here, it dropped, and then it rebounded, big rebound back up, and then it dropped, and again, tested those lows. Well, Bitcoin played catch-up. Big drop, and then the rebound, big rebound back up, and then another big drop. It kind of went in the sideways range. Well, Bitcoin played catch-up, and you'll likely see the same thing happen here. Okay, it is the Monday session for Bitcoin. In my last video on Sunday, I did a video and I went through the weekly and the monthly charts and I showed how Bitcoin's confirming a bear market. And I showed you, well, I think we're going to get a bounce. Again, it's not going to do anything to change the monthly signals. It's not going to do anything to change the weekly signals. Longer term time frames are bearish and they're telling you that Bitcoin has topped. And they're telling you that Bitcoin has started a bear market. Experts now moving their targets forward into the future because they didn't play out. We were told how great the fourth quarter was going to be, that we are going to increase $2 trillion in market cap, going up to 200,000, 250,000, even more. Yet, we've lost nearly $1 trillion in market cap with Bitcoin collapsing by more than 36%. The complete opposite to what the experts told us, the complete opposite to what the Moon Boys told us, and most accounts on X. Most people were blindsided by this. I got it right because I have good indicators and I look at support and resistance, and I talked about this. Warned you going into this resistance, there was risk of a top, and when I saw evidence of a top at the top, I told you I think we've topped. As I told you back at the April bottom, I told you I thought we bottomed. The 50-week moving average, at Bitcoin's average price, at key horizontal support, and I talked about all of that. Again, trend line in our weekly time frame with the log scaling. Again, the highs from 2021, the two peaks pointing to the next high. Again, we're likely going down to this trend line, which is pointing to the next low. And will likely drop 80 to 90%. Oh, that's outrageous. Well, that's what it's done in bear markets. 84%, nearly 80% here. Prior to that, 86%, 93%. Well, we don't have up close. Again, Bitcoin has broken the trend line from the 2022 low. Last week, we got a close below the 50-week moving average. Say the week before that. And then this last week that just ended on Sunday, we closed on Sunday, we confirmed a bear market by opening and closing below that 50-week moving average, just like we did over here. We confirmed the bear market by closing below it. I should say you got the close below the 50-week moving average, and then you confirmed it by getting the open and close below it. You tried to bounce after you did that, which was what we're probably going to do now, but then you still went lower before going back up to that 50-week for a test, rising 46% after dropping 52. You're probably going to see something similar to that, where we go lower towards 74,000, towards 63 or 60,000 if we get a 50% drop, as I think we will. And then you're going to rally back up to back test this trend line in all likelihood and move towards the 50 as it curls over. Confirmed a bear market. We have a 50-50 sell signal. This is not bullish. The RSI is below 50. The price of Bitcoin is below the 50-week moving average. When you had that happen in the past, well, first the RSI moved below 50, which is what we had happen, and then later the Bitcoin price dropped below the 50-week, and you got a 50-50 sell signal, and you confirmed a bear market, and the RSI remained pegged in the negative region through the entire decline, as it's been pegged in the upper region for the majority of the bull market here. The pullbacks to the center line here, or the 50 level on the RSI, have been the buying opportunities where we have bottomed at the 50-week moving average or just beyond it. And this is what's changed. You've had a change of behavior. Now you're not finding support at the 50. Now you're confirming a bear market, and you have a change of behavior. And when we confirmed the bear market, we went lower. We tried to bounce, and then we went lower. And then we got this rebound, faked everybody out, and then the bottom fell out of Bitcoin. You formed a head and shoulders there with the slanted neckline. You're likely going to see a horizontal neckline or a slanted neckline here near about 60 to 63,000, and then you'll get this rebound back up. But again, my target level is somewhere between 60 and 74,000, 60,000, 74,000, a 40 to 50% drop. The 63,000 target level. The 60,000 range is because we've dropped 52% over here. If we do that again, you're dropping to 60,000. People, again, the information and the last of the signal, lagging indicators in the monthly time frame on the MACD, here in the weekly time frame, the oscillator, which we call the top, it's moving into the negative region. It's got the bearish divergence on it. Here in the weekly time frame, the MACD has moved into the negative territory, but we're becoming oversold. So again, we're probably going to get some type of rebound, lower levels. We will stay at extremes here for a little while, and then we'll turn back up probably by late December or on into January. I think it's going to be January that we're going to get the Fed panicking, and the market, the stock market, is doing what Bitcoin did. Bitcoin formed a head and shoulders. Bitcoin formed a head and shoulders at the top. The stock market's doing the same thing right now. It's playing catch up to Bitcoin, and by January, the Fed is going to panic. Right now, Bitcoin is up. I warned you last week we were going to see a bottom. Bitcoin's up 1.29% right now. We got a bottoming tail on Friday. Told you we are overdue for a bounce. RSI reached extremes. We had the stochastic reach extremes. And again, a bounce. Again, the same people, the same exact people that continued, that told us, we had a breakout, when it was a fake out at the major resistance. The people that never saw the liquidation, the largest liquidation in history, when I told you we were going down to 98,000 to the 100,000 area for a test, you'll bounce and eventually take it out and drop 40 to 50% down to 74,000. I've talked about this over and over and over. Now here in week 8, it's the top that I've been talking about this stuff. People are still and are more angry at me than they were up here in predicting all of this, because now I've been right. They're scared, they're angry, getting angrier and angrier, and their attacks are getting worse and worse towards me because I've been right. Now, again, we're going to get a bounce, and then I think you're going to go down, test 74,000, and then probably try to bounce there and eventually take that level out. And by the way, I think you'll eventually see a divergence or a triple bullish divergence or some kind of divergence or multiple point divergence by the time we bottom. You could, but this reaching extremes is telling us we're likely going to go down and eventually take out this low once this bounce is done. I've talked about the 10 and the 20 period moving average of 50. You're likely rallying towards the 10 and 20 period moving average and either still at the 10 or the 20 maybe. You can get a bounce this Thanksgiving week or maybe a little bit longer, and then again the sell-off is going to resume. No bullish diversions on the MACD either, and it's pegged in the negative region. You'll likely see a divergence on it by the time we get a bottom. Everything is playing out as I said it would. Again, we broke the trend line, we back tested it, we got the bear flag, we got the right shoulder. It was the final exit point, as I talked about at the time, the 116,000. I told you we may not see 116,000 until the next cycle, and I told you 126,000 at the top, I believed was the top, and I told you that at the top. I've been saying it now for here into the 8th week. I got super bullish down here. Told you if we were going to go higher, we needed to clear resistance. We couldn't do it. Told you going in that we might top. Going into that, again, I talked about both the bullish and the bearish scenarios, what needed to happen. Turned bearish at the top and called the top because I saw evidence of that, and most people don't have the ability to do that. Most people are usually either bullish or bearish, usually perma bulls or perma bears, and again, I have the ability to flip. Like I said, got super bullish down here when everybody was thinking it was over, and we were hitting major support, Bitcoin's average price and all the rest of it. At major support here, I turned bearish at major resistance. Most people don't have the ability to do that. I'm a swing trader. I don't care which way Bitcoin goes. I trade it back and forth. So I do have the ability to flip, and I will flip and change when I see evidence, like I saw the evidence of the bottom and it's like the evidence of the top. And again, most people in the crypto community are a bunch of perma bulls. They never see tops, they never see corrections, they never see sell-offs, and they don't have the ability to flip because they're a bunch of perma bulls. These perma bulls are moving their targets that are not going to be reached into the future. And again, herd are going to follow the moon boys and the so-called experts right off the cliff. Now, I've marked some support and resistance levels here, and there'll be more because we're going to get bounces here. Whenever we get another counter trend, we'll have more resistance levels as we get counter trends and go down. And again, as we go down, we're going to have bounces along the way. We continue to see that. I would continue to warn. I believe we're in crash wave 3. Eventually, I think we've, again, get this bounce I'm looking at right now. Again, you've got the moon boys telling us we've now bottomed again. They keep saying it over and over every time. Yet we keep going lower. We've now dropped over 36%. Eventually, I think you're moving back into this area, this 74,000 area for a test. I think you'll try to bounce in this area right here. At 74,000, I think you'll rally and then you'll go lower. You'll try to form a divergence on some indicators and try to get a bounce there. With this head and shoulders. Now we could bottom there. That's possible. That'd be a 41% drop. I told you I'm predicting a 40 to 50% drop for Bitcoin. I think we get closer to the 50%. Personally, I think we're going to try to bounce here and eventually take it out. If you bounce here, now if you try to bounce here, drop to 74,000 and try to bottom. You could try to bottom there and get the right shoulder and move back up again towards these highs over here. Again, about 107, 108,000 or whatever. Could take you up into this range, but I think it's more likely you're going to bounce and then get a rebound and eventually drop down again about 50%. That takes you to 63,000. I think that's going to come down and take out this. You got a little tiny bit of support. I think you're coming down into this major support area here. The high end of it is 61,000. I think you're going to come down into this area down in here just below 65,000. probably hit 60 to 63,000, somewhere in there. But this is where I think we're going by January. And I think it's going to be by January. I think you're going to get a rally, and then I think you're going to get this bigger drop. And then I think you're going to go up. Now, does it have to be 50%? No. We've had a sell-off that was to kick off the bear market. That was 45%. That was the smallest one. This move to this low right here is 41%. So maybe we bottom just under that level. And that's why I'm saying 40 to 50%. Again, I think this is going to drag out into January, that we're going to sell off. We'll bounce. We'll have these bounces along the way. But I think it's going to go into January. And I think Bitcoin's going to be down around 50%. The reason why I think Bitcoin's going lower also is because the stock market has to play catch up. The stock market's barely setting up the head and shoulders pattern, as Bitcoin already did back up at the top. I showed you in this video. I've marked these support levels and these resistance levels here. And again, this is where I think we're going. Just looking at some of these support areas over here, and the major support is really down in here above 61,000. So I think that will hold. Our 200 week is coming in right around the mid 50,000 level. I think it's right around 55 or 57,000 or something like that. The 200 week moving average on the weekly chart will likely hold above that. And I made this chart shortly after the top right here, and I've been talking about it, and again, have been mocked and laughed at for drawing it, but yet it's played out beautifully. And I don't believe the sell-off is over yet. Again, 74,000, 63,000, so 50% drop. And then I think you get this rally, and maybe you go back up into the 90,000 range, low 90,000, mid to high 90,000. If you go lower, if you can bounce around 74,000, then you've got a shot at going above 100,000 again towards 107, 108,000. If we have a balanced pattern, if we have a lopsided pattern, then you're not going to make it up that high. 100,000 is gone for this cycle. So again, we'll be watching how this unfolds. Now, again, when Bitcoin dropped 52%, or ended up, if it last time around, rallied back up. If it drops 50%, rallied back up 46%, that would take you into the low to mid 90,000 area. You get something bigger, but you're likely going to rally back to this 200 period moving average. That could go sideways, or flatten out, or even go higher, as we saw back at the last bear market. But you're likely, and does it begin to tilt down immediately, or go sideways, or kind of go higher and then sideways? Right now it's starting to tilt down. It could still turn and tilt back up, but eventually you're going to bottom and rally towards that 200 period, rally back towards the 50-week moving average. That's what we've done in the past other bear markets. So wherever that is, the 90,000 range, above 100,000, we'll see. It depends really how low we go. Quickly, I told you on Friday we got these bottoming signals, and then we got more bottoming signals over the weekend on Sunday. And again, this is telling us we're going to get a bounce. Bars are still red. The trend is still down. Again, a bounce is a bounce. Eventually, we'll make our way down to the April low and probably take it out. You'll get the bigger bounce come January. I think that's when the Fed will panic, have the stock market play catch up to Bitcoin. Now confirmed a bear market, and when the stock market drops towards the April lows, Bitcoin will probably be beyond the April lows. That's when the Fed will panic. I think that will be late December, or more likely in January. I think they'll have an emergency meeting, and you'll get emergency rate cuts. They'll start it likely with 0.5% or a 0.75%. My guess is it's going to be 0.75, because the Fed is way behind. About to start the recession, in my opinion, in December or January. The Fed is telling us we're not going to have a recession. Us all the December's cuts off the table. We've done enough now to stabilize the labor market. And I mean, they're just clueless to what's going on. Recession indicators are already flashing. We're going to have a recession. I believe the recession indicators. Fed doesn't believe them because they're a bunch of Keynesians, but I believe them. Going to be right again. Bitcoin's pricing in that recession right now. And again, nobody thinks that's going to happen. At the indicators, the recession indicators are telling us it's going to happen. A banking crisis with this recession as well, a financial crisis. That's why Bitcoin's going to drop 80 to 90%. We're getting these signals. We got them on Friday. You're going to get a bounce. The Moon Boys are already proclaiming bottom, slapping each other on the back, telling us, Smart they are. You know, these people that told us we had a breakout at the top at major resistance and that everything's a bottom. And again, we're completely clueless to this drop. You remember those people? I got these bottoming signals, and again, told you there's going to be bounces along the way. The last one here gave us this counter trend right here. Did a nice job on calling the top, did a nice job on calling the bottom. Some of these other tops and turning points, this is likely going to be a counter trend bounce. Signal showed up on Friday as well. Got the signals here, they were early. Got them early last week. Had an early signal here earlier last week, and then got one on Sunday. I did get several signals on Sunday, and that's why I made a Sunday video. Usually I don't make a Sunday video. A bunch of signals that I wanted to let you know. By the way, again, my opinion, this is just a bounce. It's going to be followed by more selling and new lows. Again, looking at it like never catch a falling knife, and it's a dip that keeps on dipping. And I'm a longer term short, but I'm also a swing trader. So again, when we go down to a low, 40 or 50%, I'll start considering locking in gains. But if we end up dropping into a January low, I will likely close my swing trade short positions and try to go long for the short term because I'm a trader. That's what I do. I trade Bitcoin back and forth. To me, this is just a bounce. I have no interest in this, even though I warned you last week we'd likely see a bottom. I remain short, and my strategy is to close my swing trade position, my short swing trade position at lower levels, 40 to 50% lower from the top. Topping signal over here, and these are just showing you where short-term bounces and sell-offs can happen here. And we got the signal here on Sunday, and that's why I made the video. Again, it's a bottoming signal in that it's the green with the circle there. The green triangle with the circle, that's a bottoming signal. Now we're seeing the bars try to flip. We tried to flip the bars back to bullish with the Sunday session. Couldn't do it. Now we're trying to get it here on the Monday session. Previously, we got some false signals at higher levels, but they kept getting canceled out, and the bars remain bearish up until right now. And again, this was a final print, so you're likely getting that counter trend bounce. Mark the top beautifully. Look at that. Outstanding. Look at that. Peak of stinking boo. Nailed it. I have good indicators. But I programmed this, and I programmed my own indicators, and I programmed this to tell me where turning points will likely be. Some of these minor signals back and forth, but you got a major turning point here, major turning point here. Then the sell signal, and you got these other sell signals. Now, again, it's telling us we'll get a rally here. Now, sometimes, again, you get these rallies. I got a major signal here, and then we still went lower. You got kind of back-to-back signals before you got that bigger rally. Could see something like that, depending on how big this rally is. Times you get it, you get the bigger rally immediately here with our counter trend to the 116,000 area. So I'll be watching to see how big of a rally we get. But regardless, it is a counter trend bounce. Bitcoin is topped. And I can tell you, 80,000 is not the bottom. Still nothing here. I'll be watching to see if a signal shows up here in the next day or two. But so far, nothing. That 9 count earlier last week that suggested we were going to get a bottom and a kind of rebound. We got it. We went a little bit lower. As I told you, sometimes it's the case. Other times we turn immediately here. It marked the 116,000 top. Over here it marked the August peak. Again, it's suggesting a bounce, but that's likely going to be followed by a trend extension. Once this bounce is done, however high it goes, it'll likely be followed by a trend extension to test 74,000 and likely eventually taking it out. But we're seeing these signals that formed on Friday. We're seeing them begin to play out, and some of the signals that played out over the weekend, they're mostly on Sunday. That's giving us this bounce. We're up 1.80% right now. So we're getting the bounce that I warned you was going to happen. We had that bottoming tail on Friday. But I did get more signals, as I said, and that's why I made the Sunday video. I did get more bottoming signals on Sunday. Had some on Friday, got more on Sunday. Signals remain bearish, and again, Yeah, I was expecting a bottom last week and a bounce to start going into the Thanksgiving Day week, Thanksgiving Day holiday week here. Maybe it goes past that, depending on how big of a bounce we get. Any rally back up is a gift to the bears and an opportunity to the bulls to close long positions. But as I said, I doubt they'll do it. Again, we'll see more selling because the institutions are selling. Eventually, we'll get a bottom, likely in late December or January, and you get a much bigger rally. The institutions will sell into that, will likely create the right shoulder for the head and shoulders top. The retail investors, the herd, they won't do it. They'll believe the sell-off is over when we bottom out in late December or January. They'll do what they always do. They'll ride this thing all the way down. They did the last bear market. That's what the herd does. Don't be one of those people. But another beautiful signal here. We had gotten earlier signals, earlier warning signs. That signal had gotten canceled out. This one did not. So again, we're getting this bounce. Again, beautiful signals calling the turning points. Again, these tops and some of these bottoms. Beautiful, beautiful signals. Again, I programmed the signal here to tell me where a turning point might happen. Not perfect. Sometimes you get a signal and you go a little bit lower and you get multiple signals. Sometimes it plays out beautifully, marking tops and bottoms over here to mark the day of the August peak, here the day after the October top. It's not perfect, but it does a good job. I showed you the RSI in this video. It's at extremes and it's turning up off of extremes. The awesome oscillator, expect to get green bars in all likelihood. No guarantee if it's a more feeble rally, but if we see it go this week, maybe into next week or something, if it goes a little while, you could see some green bars, but eventually get divergences. The awesome oscillator and the RSI have made new lows. Again, this is likely not the bottom at 80,000. You're likely going to go lower and go to 74,000. And I think you're even going to take out 74,000 and probably get a 50% drop towards 63,000. But we'll see. Again, somewhere between 40 and 50% is where I think the bottom will be. Those remain bearish, but I'll be watching. Do we get some green here? We're going to have lighter volume, so again, Bitcoin's going to be manipulated very easily. It's probably going to get this counter trend. And I've been talking about this Wyckoff distribution pattern that's set up. About this back at the top. We've been following this thing pretty closely, this Wyckoff distribution model, and if we continue to follow it, we're going to get some kind of bounce. We're right here, get some kind of bounce, and then we're going to go and test this April low at 74,000. We've been following this thing pretty closely. So it's suggesting we're overdue for a bounce here. We're getting the bounce. When it's done, you're likely going to go make new lows and eventually set up divergences in the daily time frame, and maybe multiple point divergences in the daily time frame if we eventually go back and get a 50% drop. But as long as we continue to follow the Wyckoff model, we are likely in crash wave 3. Talked about the Elliott wave. I talked about the Elliott wave count. Again, I told you either we're in this minor wave 3 to getting now minor wave 4, intermediate wave 3, or could have finished right here, intermediate wave 3. We're now getting intermediate wave 4, and down here at 74,000, that can finish intermediate wave 5 and complete primary wave 3. So again, this right here, this count's showing it as a minor wave. And eventually, I think we bottom down here below 74,000, maybe 50% retreat, 50% crash at 63,000. Eventually, you're moving back towards the 200 period, which could go sideways and drop, or could start dropping more rapidly. But you're probably going to move up into the 90,000, maybe above 100,000 with the next rally once we bottom out in January. So this is what I think is going to happen, and I think you'll have a slanted neckline somewhere between a 40 and 50% drop here. 40% is horizontal. We bounce there. A 50% drop or more takes us and gives us a slanted neckline. We're in this minor wave 4 right now, and then we get, more drops, more choppiness. I think the other possibility is that we've completed intermediate wave 3. We're now in intermediate wave 4. That's going to be giving us another lower high that'll be followed by intermediate wave 5 that will give us wave completion of primary wave 3. And here, if I zoom out, you can see the 74,000 area here. Again, I think you eventually try to get wave 3 there. You get some kind of bounce, but then I think you're going to go lower here, and I think you're going to get primary wave 3, primary wave 4. Maybe primary wave 4 is bigger. We'll see what happens. But then I think you're going to get primary wave 5 going into January. And that's when I think the Fed will panic. That's when I think you're going to get this massive surge back up to the 90,000s or above 100,000 somewhere, depending on how low we go. Do we have now wave 4 or intermediate wave 4? That I do not know, but those are my counts. Late wave is speculation. Don't lose sight of the fact that we are in a downtrend, a series of lower highs and lower lows. This is what people fail to acknowledge. Here with our linear scaling, we've got a nice looking channel. Here, if we exclude the shadow, connecting this peak with this peak over here, excluding these shadows, lines can change. This is our linear scaling. Bars remain red. Bars didn't buy into the rally into the top. They remained red. Now here with the log scaling, I've got a nice looking channel as well. Now here I've excluded the shadow with the log scaling right here. And again, if we take the high here, the high here, including the shadows, draw a parallel boundary from these lows over here, you've got a nice looking channel that we might end up moving towards the lower end of this channel eventually if we take out the 74,000 area here. So again, regardless of whether you look at it through log or the linear scaling, you're in a downtrend. You have some potential channels, and again, channels change and expand, so we'll be watching. But right now, we're getting the bounce that the indicator said we were going to get. Once it's done, we're going to resume the selling. Again, beautiful signals at the top. No bottoming signal here. And the purple line up here is resistance. Actually, when this ends, you're going to have to get back above that like we did over here. We bottomed. Again, you got big rallies towards it, but it wasn't, and we kept moving to new lows. It wasn't until we got the bottoming signals and we got back above the purple line that it ended the sell-off. And that's when I think you'll get that larger counter trend. I think that will be in January that we bottom out.